What's going on, guys? A lot of people have been asking me to talk about my martial arts background or my martial arts story. So today in this video, I'm going to take you through when it all began to how things are now. So let's get this thing started. I joined Taekwondo September 2004. I was 11 years old. Now, I wasn't real big at team sports or school sports, anything like that. So that's the reason why my parents wanted to get me into martial arts. So it was me, my little brother, and my dad. We all joined Taekwondo together at this little local school not too far from where I lived. I started, and then once I got to the first belt, yellow belt, I actually wanted to quit. I was just a really shy kid, really reserved, and just, being in a Taekwondo class is just a lot for someone who's, just hasn't come out of my shell yet or anything like that. So I really wanted to quit at yellow belt once I got there. Luckily, I did not quit. My parents just made me just stick with it, keep on going, and I'm very glad that I did not quit now because look at where I got. The next obstacle I had to overcome was when I think I was like orange or green belt. They wanted me to start sparring. Now, I've talked about this before in a previous video. I did not like the idea of sparring. I wasn't afraid of getting hurt. I was not afraid of getting hurt at all. I was afraid of hurting someone else. I didn't like the idea of kicking and punching someone else. I was so afraid to hurt someone, so it took me a little while to actually get used to it and get in there and start sparring. In 2006, I started competing in Taekwondo tournaments. The beginning of the year, I was a blue belt. My very first tournament was this little local tournament put on by my current instructor. So, I was originally supposed to be in the blue belt division fighting one other girl. But since it was just us two, my instructor, who was also the one who put on the tournament, decided to merge us into the black belt division. Yes, my very first tournament, I was a blue belt and I was fighting in the black belt division. I already didn't want to compete in the tournament. I was already super nervous. So when I found out I was going to be fighting black belts in my very first competition, I really didn't want to do it. I pretty much just sucked it up, went out there, fought, and I ended up with first place. Later in 2006, I ended up going to the AAU Georgia qualifier, placed first there, and qualified to go to the AAU Nationals that summer. Went there, fought about 3 times, and then ended up coming home with first place. And that first year of competing, I went undefeated, so pretty good year for someone who originally didn't even want to spar in the first place. Now, in 2007, I was a high red belt at the beginning of the year. I pretty much did the same thing, competed in the local tournament, and then did the Georgia AAU qualifier, I think I placed second there. Still qualified to go to another AAU tournament, which I ended up doing AAU Junior Olympics. We ended up fighting in that. I believe I fought twice there. Came home with first place once again. And then in September of 2007 was when I tested for my school black belt. Now, my black belt test. I only made it about 70% of the way through. It was me, my little brother, and another guy. We were all testing for our school black belt together. And we had to talk about the tenets of Taekwondo. I believe I had to talk about perseverance, pretty much explain my definition of it and give some examples of it. And while I was talking about it, everything just kind of went black. I blacked out during that part. So they had me sit down. They think my blood sugar got really low. They had me sit out the rest of the test. I was able to do my board break on fire at the end when my brother and the other guy ended up finishing their test. I was able to still do my board break on fire, but I had to finish my black belt test the following week. So that sucked. It was really pretty scary because that has never happened to me before, but I still overcame it and I still achieved my black belt. In 2008, I tested for my first degree black belt. Sadly, soon after that, we ended up having to close down our current Taekwondo school that we were at since I had started. And the main reason being is martial arts and Taekwondo it's not a real popular thing where I live. And even to this day, it is not. It's just, you can't find any type of good martial arts schools around here. So once we closed that down, we ended up merging with a karate school down the road. I wasn't able to do as much Taekwondo there just because we had to share the time slots. They still had classes to teach as well. So I just did a little bit of Taekwondo there. There were some MMA classes there, so I was able to do some Jiu-Jitsu and learn some Jiu-Jitsu there. And then I ended up leaving that school. The biggest reason I left that school is because the owner of that school was, I don't know how to describe him, but pretty much he said he had like this 3rd degree black belt in this, black belt in that, and he wasn't that good. And I was 15 at the time, and he started drama with me over MySpace. So yeah, long story short, we left there. We didn't really like the owner of that school, so we ended up leaving there. Then I ended up at a really small school that one of the black belts that I knew when I first started Taekwondo, he opened up that one. I mean, it was extremely small, really small, but it worked. We had really small groups of classes. I helped teach some. It was mainly MMA there, though. We didn't do a whole lot of Taekwondo, and a lot of the people were newer people. They were beginners. So I kind of ended up just helping them out versus me training a lot. It was more of me kind of being partnered with a new person or partnered with some kids, and I ended up teaching and helping them out. So I was able to get some more teaching experience out of that, but I wasn't able to get a full-on training experience. In 2010 is when that school ended up just slowly closing down. They just weren't able to keep that one going, and then I had nowhere. I mean, I literally had nowhere to train up until I think maybe in around 2012 is when one of my older instructors, he started teaching classes once a week in like this building that a church used for like Bible studies type things. So I ended up doing that once a week. I would go train with him a little bit, and then they weren't able to use that building anymore. And then back to where I had nowhere to train. I would just train a little bit outside when I could, but pretty much I had nowhere to train, and it was really demotivating going from having a big Taekwondo school, people to train with, just got my 1st degree black belt, to just a struggle over a couple of years after that, and then having absolutely nowhere to train. It was just super demotivating and just really upsetting for me. In 2013, one of my old instructors and my coach ended up going in together and opening up a new martial arts school. They had Taekwondo and MMA. The Taekwondo was mainly just a lot of kids and beginners, so I wasn't able to do a lot of good Taekwondo training there. I was able to learn a little bit of MMA there, but once again, it being a newer school, we had a lot of newer people, so I still ended up being partnered with a beginner, having to kind of work with them more over me getting to actually get a good training session all the time. But sadly, that one only lasted about till, I would say, around like towards the end of the year. That one ended up having to close down just because, like I said earlier, Taekwondo and martial arts just is not a very in-demand, popular thing in my area. Even to this day, it's just not a popular thing. So it was really hard to get in new people and actually keep the school running. So later that year, we ended up having to just close it back down. Super, like I said, when you get a school and then it has to close down, it's just really demotivating, and just, it kind of just kills your motivation for training. And also that year, at the end of that year, is when I got married to my husband, and we were living in this little apartment. I didn't have anywhere to train once again. I did go to the gym with him a little bit and do some weightlifting, but pretty much I had nowhere to really do any good martial arts training. In 2014, a year after my husband and I got married, we ended up moving into where we are now, which is with his aunt. We currently live in her basement. That may sound like it's not a very good thing, but this basement is way bigger, almost twice the size of the apartment we were living in. When we first moved in here, we converted one of the small rooms into a little training room. I'm sure a lot of you remember seeing that on videos. So that was kind of my start on just trying to get back into consistent training. which I'm not gonna lie, it was a struggle. It was a really big struggle for me to really get back into, just get back into Taekwondo training. It just being me, being out for a while, it's hard to motivate yourself when it's just you. And then also, I think not too long after we got the room, maybe about 6 months after we converted that room, I ended up hurting my ankle really badly, and I was out for like 2 to 3 months. So that kind of just set me back again. But in October of 2015, hasn't even been a year yet, we ended up converting what used to be the bedroom living area into what the training room is now. It is much bigger, much larger space. I have a lot more room to film and to train and just do a little bit more than I could in that smaller room. So since doing that, that kind of lit a new fire, new motivation for me to just do better and everything else. And I would say since the beginning of this year, since the beginning of 2016, I really just started to get just more and more motivated to get back into my old Taekwondo shape again. So that is my martial arts story. I hope this kind of does give you an explanation of why I haven't gotten my second degree black belt, because I know a lot of people have been asking me why I haven't gotten a second degree. It's because since I got my first degree, I just haven't been at a Taekwondo school long enough or consistent enough to actually train, prepare, and test for a second degree black belt. And this should kind of give you an explanation of why I don't have any training partners or no one to spar with, because there's no one. I have no one. I've got some friends that, every now and then used to come train with me, but, sparring with someone, beginner who knows nothing versus someone who is actually trained in your style of Taekwondo, that's a big difference. And there just isn't really anyone right now that I can train or spar with. But overall, that's just how things have gone. I started when I was 11 years old. I'm now 23, almost 23 years old, and I've just found a new passion for Taekwondo and training, and of course, filming everything for you guys to see. I do hope you all enjoyed this video. Soon I'm gonna try to get some videos out of my old Taekwondo tournaments. It just depends on if I can really find all the footage. And but when I do, I'm gonna take a tournament, make it all into one video, and just kind of commentate over it, just kind of talk about that specific tournament. So hopefully I will be able to find the footage from some of my old ones, and I hope you all will enjoy seeing that as well. Don't forget to subscribe, like us on Facebook, and follow me on Instagram. And don't forget to leave a comment down below on what type of talking video you want to see next. I will see you guys later, and thanks again for watching.